Hello there, YouTube. I thought I'd make another video, and I want to discuss one of what is likely to be the main topics of this channel, simply because it seems to be so very pervasive. And it's something that I thought I wanted to give a more nuanced response to, because a lot of the content I see online now is either one way or the other. It's either supporting this ridiculous idea, or it's reacting to this ridiculous idea to such a degree that it is becoming ridiculous itself. And that is the modern culture war. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but if you're watching this channel, you're probably somewhat familiar. The culture war is a very real thing, and it's stupid nonsense. It really shouldn't be happening. What has happened is, for some reason, the progressive left have decided that they want to promote some frankly bizarre ideas. And instead of promoting what the left used to promote, which was egalitarianism, freedoms, general social libertarian perspectives, instead of that kind of a thing, now they want to promote identitarianism, cancel culture, and a mix of extreme prudism, like extreme prudish behaviour, and extreme degeneracy at the same time. Which I didn't think would be possible, but they are somehow managing it. Now, the alternative is what is now the alternate right, what people often call the alt-right or the far-right, which, I mean, if you're going to refer to people as far-right, why don't you just refer to them as evil and stop with the pretense? That's clearly what you mean. What you mean is, those people are evil, therefore we ignore what they say. If you see someone who legitimately refers to people as far-right, what they're saying is, that person disagrees with me, therefore they're evil, therefore we ignore them. They are small-minded, petty people who cannot handle the idea that other people have different opinions to them. So yes, that's a big issue, but those people who are on the right, or what is often described as the far right, have started going even further than they should. And it's all reactionary. It's all because the left have taken things to a ridiculous degree. Identitarian nonsense in media, for example. We have spent more than a decade now with every white male character either being race-swapped or gender-swapped, or made gay, or turned into an evil villain or an incompetent. Those are the only 5 options now. You cannot have a sympathetic, competent, white, male, straight character. It's not allowed. And because of this, now the right are reacting badly towards left-wing media. Media that would have been fine in the early 2000s is now being assumed woke because it might have a female main character, especially if it's a non-white female main character, or it might have a prominent gay character. Most of the media I've consumed has at least one prominent gay character, or at least one non-white prominent character. Often they are women, sometimes they are the leads, and it's never bothered me before. But now I'm seeing things where The Witcher 4, for example, is being raked across the coals because it's got a female main character, even though it makes perfect sense for it to have a female main character. Now, there are other issues. Has the game had uglification happen to it, where the female main character is intentionally made to be ugly in order to not pander to the male gaze? Yes, clearly that did happen. And then in later variations, they've made her more feminine. And that clearly, again, did happen. Is that something they did accidentally? Are they going to reverse that again? Because CD Projekt Red are very much woke, and they make it very obvious that they are woke. Who knows? Who can say exactly what's going to happen? This is a big issue because it seems to have trickled down into everything. Everything is about woke politics now. It doesn't matter if we're talking about video games, it doesn't matter if we're talking about TV and film, it doesn't matter if we're talking about just general day-to-day life, immigration policies, tax policies, workers' rights. All of these things are now being framed through the framing of intersectional feminism and identitarian politics. And that's a terrible thing. So, that's something I want to bring up, and it's something that I want to speak out against. But I don't just want to speak out against it, I also want to speak out against the overreaching backlash. Because not every gay character, not every powerful or capable woman, not every character who is non-white is an attempt at woke politics. My own writing is a fantasy world where the vast majority of the major cities are in the tropics, and for that reason, the vast majority of the characters are brown-skinned. That doesn't mean that there are no white people. There are plenty of white-skinned people, but the majority of people are Mediterranean-esque. Think Egyptian, Middle Eastern, even Indian in tone, or they're Latin American or Southeast Asian in skin tone. This is just what is natural for this world, the world I happen to have written. And that's fine. It would be strange if I made all of these characters obviously Caucasian, because it would make no sense given the climate that they're in for them to be that colour. There are Caucasians. There's also a huge Nordic region. I say Nordic as in Northlands. Nordic being a term we use in the real world. It's a little unfortunate. I'm trying to find alternative terms to Nordic or Northman or things like that, because I don't want it to be associated with like Scandinavia or something like that, because they're not similar at all. Their culture is quite different. But I do have a culture that lives in a very northern, very cold mountainous region with very little access to the coast, and they live a mixture of subarctic cities and underground settlements, and they have a lot of technological advancements because they need it to survive. And they are largely Caucasian. They are very light-skinned. They're fairly light. They're very light in features. Blonde hair, blue eyes, because that makes sense for the region they're in. This is something that we just need to establish. Like one of the things in my writing, Sovereign Steel, it's a tabletop RPG. I have men naturally get a strength bonus. Women get a strength penalty. And this means that if you're playing a character in my game, if you pick a man, you will start with an average strength of 12. If you pick a woman, you'll start with an average strength of 9, with human average supposed to be around the 10 mark. Now, this is intentional because men are stronger than women. This is just reality. Now, the penalties and bonuses that the genders get actually even out. That's for game balance reasons. If I was being completely honest, the men should probably get more benefits than the women, because this is a game more focused on physicality and combat. Those attributes are a little bit more of a focus for a game like this. And let's face it, those things are things men excel at. Being stronger, tougher, just generally more muscular and more capable physically is just something that men excel at. And to say that they don't would be a lie. The fact that professional women's football teams can't beat under 15s when a boys under 15s team plays against them shows just what a gender advantage plays. Now, I've even said in my rule set, if you don't want to play with this, if this doesn't fit the fantasy that you're running, it's a fantasy game. If you want to play a fantasy game where your 90-pound when wet, 5'1" wayfish girl beats up all the big, strong, massive men, muscular men, that's fine. You know what? That fantasy's one I kind of like as well. I grew up watching Buffy. Like I'm happy with the the power fantasy where the unlikely character is able to beat up the extremely strong-looking characters. Like, so it's an optional thing. You can decide not to use the modifiers, but the modifiers are there as the standard in order to add verisimilitude. Now, if I had made it so that everything was even, would that be woke? Not necessarily. If I had made a point to make it so that men could not be depicted as stronger than women, even though we know logically they are, would that be woke? I would say yes. Would me making it mandatory and refusing to allow women to ever be depicted as strong, because, well, that's just unrealistic in this game with dragons and magic in. Would that be, far right? Well, yeah, I suppose it would. It would be the counter variant of woke. It would be the overcorrection. This is a fantasy game I'm creating. It doesn't need to be completely sensible in all ways. It needs to have verisimilitude. It needs to be internally consistent. It needs to have weight and depth to it. I can't just have things happen and wave them off as, oh, well, it's magic. That's boring, it's lazy, and it ruins any immersion you have in the setting when you can't make logical conclusions about the world setting. Which is why I like my world setting to be logical. I like it to follow certain rules. This is something that the culture war is starting to really erode on both sides now. Is that we can't have media. One of the stories I wrote in my setting focused around a gay guy who can't be openly gay because the nation he's from, it makes it illegal, and within sovereign steel, and that if he was to reveal that he was gay, him and his family would lose all of their inheritance. He would lose all of his positions of standing in the community, and as he is an important person within the story, he's not willing to make that sacrifice and leave his family destitute. And that's an interesting story, because then the character gets blackmailed with this information. And that's an intriguing character development. How does he react to this? Now, all of this information, I mean, that's a very broad and standardized story. All of this information would not work if I wasn't able to make a nation in my world that has homophobic laws, that has anti-gay laws. Does that make me anti-gay to have a story in which one of the nations, or even more than one of the nations, has laws against homosexuality? Of course not. Of course not. Hell, the real world has that right now. In fact, there are more countries in the real world that restrict gay rights than allow gay rights. We think that we've had gay rights succeed. They really haven't. They've succeeded in the West, and only tangentially. Even here in the UK, there are parts of the UK where full gay equality does not exist. I'm looking at you, Northern Ireland. The Northern Ireland devolved parliament still has not passed true equality for gay people. They are still not allowed to adopt within Northern Ireland, and that is wrong. So that gives you an idea as to the problem. What we see as woke is actually just an issue that needs addressing. Feminism is screeching harpy nonsense in the West. It is the most insulting, often anti-male rhetoric based on lies and nonsense. But if you go to China or the Middle East or most of Africa, it's pretty accurate. Feminism really does have a place to argue from there, because women don't have equal rights. It's within my lifetime that women have had the right to own property and drive cars within Saudi Arabia. That's depressing. So we need to always have that kind of consideration when we're looking at our writing and our media. And I wanted to address that. So yeah, the culture war, it's going to come up a lot as I talk about specific topics. And I want to make sure that I make this as an introduction to the culture war, as a way of addressing some issues that are likely to come up in the comments. That is, as I criticise one side, I'm going to be assumed to be on the other. if I criticise the woke politics, people are going to assume that I'm part of the anti-woke group that are arguing and celebrating when woke things fail. And to be fair, I am. But when I criticise this group, people are going to assume I'm criticising it from the side of the woke. No, I just think that these people that I am part of go too far. They have become so reactionary that now, when they see a black main character or a gay main character or a female main character, they ask, where is the wokeness? How pandering is this going to be? Is this going to be insulting? Is this going to be an active piece of racist, sexist diatribe that insults white men? And the reason that they think that is because it probably will be. But it means that we now can't have nice things. We can't have media that's got those characters in without people assuming that it's going to be a piece of anti-male, anti-white rhetoric. And I'm sick of that. I want to go back to a time when I can have a black main character and not assume that it's in there as a political statement. I want to go back to a time when I can have a Latina female girl boss character who's sassy without it being assumed that it's either some kind of woke statement by having a non-white woman or some kind of anti-woke statement by having a sassy Latina as some kind of male gaze fantasy. It doesn't have to be either. It could just be that the person wanted to write a story about a Latina woman who's a bit sassy. Why can't we have that? Why can't we have these nice things anymore? So yeah, that's something that I wanted to discuss. And I'm going to leave it there because I've been rambling now for almost 17 minutes. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you in the next video. I'm going to make videos more frequently, actually. I'm going to try now, because I can set this up on my table and just talk to my phone. I'm going to set this up every day and try and record a daily video, just talking about something. I've got a few different topics I want to put out, and I'm actually going to record a few videos in quick succession right now, because I've got a couple of videos that I want to put out that are just important issues I want to talk about that will inform later videos that I'm making, sort of like the groundwork that I need now that I'm coming back to YouTube. So I'm going to make those videos. I may throw them all up at once. I may stagger them so I'm not bombarding everyone. But let's face it, I don't have that many subscribers. And those of you subscribed, you know I make just standard vlogs. Maybe you'll be happy to watch an hour of me just rambling. I don't know. But I'm going to try and keep every video to under 20 minutes. I think that's a good amount. And if I can get between 10 and 20 minutes, I think that I've got a standard focused video. So given that, I'm going to end this here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.